when I was asked to do this, I'd never heard of this before. I mean, where you get up and give a talk and then you get up and give another talk? Jesus, I mean. Bite me. You need to know that I am always rude. So, I apologize, I shouldn't have said that to you. I regret having done that, and let me know if there's any way I can make that right. Here's what I want to talk about. When Johnny called me and said, well, yeah, you get up and give a talk, and then we all have dinner, and you get up and give another talk. And I said, what's the second one about? And he said, just something you want to talk about. So I don't know how long that's going to last, but I think it's worth listening to. So I've been sober for a long time, and when I was 28 years sober, I was doing my evening review. I'm my 11th step, and I was having this conversation with God, not expecting any kind of answers. As I said, my company provides psychiatric care, and I work with the psychiatrists and the inmates while it's being applied. So I'm often in a room with a lot of inmates, seriously mentally ill inmates. And I know what the symptoms of mental illness look like. So I heard some voices. Now, I'm not at all reluctant to tell you about this. Actually, that's happened to me twice in my life. One time I was coming back from Tampa after giving a talk there, and I heard a voice that says, "You're done." And I knew exactly what it was. And it was about, no, you're in a marriage that's failing, and your kids need a motivated soccer coach. So stay home. But I had promised about a year's worth of talks after that, but after that it was done. And I went home and did everything I could do to repair the marriage, and I coached the twins soccer team, and we won the soccer league, and I got divorced. And then I didn't speak for, 3 or 4 years. And then there wasn't any reason not to anymore, so I started again. The other time I heard it was when I was 28 years sober. Now, we come in with seriously depleted self-esteem. Most of us have gone down some pretty muddy roads and had some pretty ugly experiences that led us to believe all sorts of lies. That diminished sense of self-esteem will not allow us to take chances at things we could succeed at. So I'm in the middle of my 11th step one evening, and I said, God, how come I still believe that if you really knew me, you wouldn't like me? We come in with seriously depleted self-esteem. Most of us have gone down some pretty muddy roads and had some pretty ugly experiences that led us to believe all sorts of lies. That diminished sense of self-esteem will not allow us to take chances at things we could succeed at. So I'm in the middle of my 11th step one evening, and I said, God, how come I still believe that if you really knew me, you wouldn't like me? And so help me God, I heard a response as clear as a bell. And the response was principles. And being the mentally ill person that I am, I started answering the voice and said, what the hell do principles have to do with it? Principles are like honesty and open-mindedness and willingness and all that stuff. And what I heard was, no, your principles are those beliefs that you hold so dearly that they will influence every decision you make. They're the road signs of your life. And I said, so what am I supposed to do with that? I want to write inventory. The book says people, institutions, and principles. And I have never in 28 years been able to wrap my arms around writing inventory on principles. It just didn't look like it worked. So I said, what am I supposed to do? And what I heard was, the principles you're concerned about are the self-defeating beliefs. And I said, what do I do with that? And they said, put it in the first column. So what I did was I took out a legal pad, and in the first column I wrote down, if you really knew me, you wouldn't like me. And then I said, so what now? And what I heard was, open your book. And I looked in the second column in the book, and the heading above the second column is the cause. So why do I believe that if you really knew me, you wouldn't like me? I believe that because people told me that from the time I was 10 years old. Well, your dad's a drunk, your mother's crazy, you got no chance at all. And that doesn't do anything to shore up your self-esteem. So I wrote down, people told me I'd never amount to anything. And then I said, I looked at the third column, and it says, does this affect your self-esteem? Oh my God. Does it affect it? It blows it out of the water. It destroys it. You don't wind up with any. And so I wrote down affects my self-esteem because I always believed I'd never amount to anything. And then I wrote down it affects my security because. And if everyone's going to leave because they find out they don't like you, how would you ever be secure in a friendship? How would you ever be secure in a relationship? How would you be secure in a job? How would you be secure in anything? And there's no way to get secure if you believe that if people really know you, they're going to bail. How does that affect your ambitions? Why the hell would you have any? If everybody's going to leave, if your ambition is to be successful in business or successful financially or whatever, all those things go out the window. Does it affect your personal relations? Yeah, you aren't going to have any. Does it affect your sex relations? Yeah, you know, sex relations are just personal relations on steroids. And if this lady that I hooked up with at some point looks at me and goes, "You aren't who I thought you were. I'm out of here." How are you going to have sex relations? Where was I selfish? The truth about my life is, this terrible thing to say, is that I have more friends than I want. Well, I'll say it if you don't want to. I think friendship carries a requirement with it, and I'm not that ambitious. You know, I'll get up here and tell you the truth as I see it. And if you don't like it, my name's Bob, and it goes in the first column. I was selfish to believe that because I knew that it was a lie. I've got people trying to be friends with me, and I'm such a loner that I have a hard time letting people in. And it comes from my childhood, and I've tried to overcome it, and I'm still working on it. So I'm selfish because I know it to be a lie, and I just won't go through all the work of challenging it. You know what I thought when I was 28 years sober? I thought, I've been writing inventory once a year for 28 years, and just leave me the hell alone. You know, how come I got to go deeper to find reality? And I frankly was pretty upset about that. But I was willing to do it. So why was I dishonest? Well, I was selfish because I wouldn't even go through the work to find what I needed to know. I was dishonest because it's dishonest to believe a lie. I was self-seeking because it allowed me to be a victim. You know, it's the perfect excuse. Well, nobody's going to like me. Why the hell should I try anything? I can just sit back and blow this whole thing off. I don't have to work at this. I don't need to know the truth. Actually, that's not right. Do you know that inventory is not about finding the truth? Inventory is about finding the lie. That's the truth. And this inventory is all about finding the lie. And so I was self-seeking because it allowed me to be a victim, and it was the perfect excuse for writing off any kind of failure I had had in my life, because after all, at some point, nobody's going to like me. Why was I frightened? I thought it was the truth. And it wasn't. At the end of the third column, I started doing something that isn't in the book. And I just added one question to inventory, and that is this a lie? And I found out that every single self-defeating belief that I had was a lie. And here's why. I am a child of God and an equal to anyone on the face of this planet. I'm no better or no worse, but I am an equal. And for me to somehow think that I am damaged goods or a second-class citizen or whatever that looks like is contempt for God. You know, God made me exactly what He wanted, and I may have gone off in a couple of bad directions, but the truth is that the essential person that He made is capable of adding something to life, as are you. The challenge here is that if you believe all that, well, I'll tell you what some of mine look like. If you really knew me, you wouldn't like me. I'm a failure. I'll never amount to anything. I'll never be successful financially. I'll never be successful in a relationship. Any woman who would want to get in an intimate relationship with me has to be mentally ill. Well, I know it sounds funny. Now tell me that none of you, of course, have ever thought of this. But as long as, now here's the amazing part of some of the things that we believe. I'll never be financially successful. I already am financially successful. I mean, I'm doing just fine. I could retire today. I keep working because I don't know what else to do. You know what? I grew up in serious poverty, and I don't want to leave any money on the table. So I keep working because I do really well. And, you know, a lot of my friends don't address me as Bob. They address me as you cheap son of a bitch. But, I mean, I spend a lot of money on my kids. I have 5 sons and 3 grandsons. There hasn't been a girl born in my family since 1936. Do you know what's going to happen if one of my kids has a daughter? Oh, my. So, what I found out was that I have a head full of nonsense about who and what I am. And that if I took the time to challenge all those self-defeating beliefs that I've made into principles, I was going to really change my mind about who I am. You know, I like who I am. I really do. And there's a lot of people that don't. Or not a whole lot, but certainly some. And the reason why I like myself is because I work at doing this. I don't get out of, you know, in my 11th step, it talks about having a plan for the day. Every day I write out, I don't know, 12 to 15 things that I want to do that day. A lot of it has to do with business, but some of it doesn't. And one of the things that I write every day on my plan for the day is make someone else's life better. And it reminds me that I need to work at improving other people's lives and get out of myself. Now, I'll tell you what another one of those things is, and that is be happy. You know, I'm not proud to tell you that being happy is not my standard default. My standard default was punch somebody. I have to work at being happy. It honestly takes effort for me. So I have to remind myself in my plan for the day to enjoy my life. You know, when my mother was still alive, she'd say, stop and smell the roses. And she also had a big sign on her wall that says, if life gives, and I always thought she was talking about me. It says, if life gives you lemons, make lemonade. I wrote inventory on, I thought, let's see, I want to write this to find out what happens. And so I sat down and I thought, well, I'll just write what I can come up with. And I wrote 15 self-defeating beliefs in the first 10 minutes. Now, if you think that that only had something to do with me, you are seriously mistaken. Every person in this room has self-doubt. Every person in this room thinks that there are parts of them that are unacceptable to others. And as long as you believe that, you will essentially prevent yourself from ever taking the kinds of risks that could make you wildly successful. I can tell you without any fear of contradiction that every person in this room is capable of things beyond their imagination. And the only way you're ever going to find out is if you take the risk. And see, we don't want to take that risk because we're afraid we'll fail and look bad. Who cares? You know, you will never find out the extent to which you can succeed unless you have the courage to try. Now, I'm an old man now. I mean, I still think I'm in a 32-year-old, you know, hidden inside a 77-year-old body. And I don't, here's the thing that bothers me. So I go to AA meetings. Sometimes I don't even want to go, honestly, because I will hear people in AA meetings talk about themselves in the most self-deprecating manner. They'll talk about being a screw-up and all this stuff that they messed up and all this different thing. And so I'll sit there and listen to a bright, articulate person in an AA meeting tell me that they're a fool. And it just kills me because they're not. They just believe they are. And I'll sit in there and go, oh my God, what happens if they never dive deep enough to find out who they really are? And at the bottom of every one of those inventories is, I am a child of God and an equal to anyone on the face of this planet. And if they never, ever find out about that, they will live their lives in relative misery because no one ever brought it to their attention. So I'm infecting all of you with the way to find the lie. And the lie that will prevent you from becoming the person that you would like to be, and more importantly, the person that God intended you to be. So the question is, are you willing to look? Please have enough courage to do something that may radically improve your life. Because if you don't, I don't want to watch. I don't. You know, it seems like we're all infected with this idea when we go to AA meetings that we're all screw-ups. You know, here, it's in the 10th step. It says, for by this time sanity will have returned. Well, God damn it, if sanity's returned, claim it. How many people do you see in Alcoholics Anonymous that are sober for a long time that say, well, I'm an alcoholic? That's the problem. No, it isn't, not anymore. If you're through the 10th step, it's not the problem. You're the problem. And hiding behind alcoholism when you've been sober for a while and you've gone through the plan of recovery is a lie. You know what? I'm as sane as anybody I know. I am. I live a sane and sober life. And I do that because it's a better way of living. You know that a life sober is infinitely better than a life drunk. So, you know, half of the deal is people are afraid that they're going to sound magnanimous because they say, I'm sober, I'm sound emotionally, spiritually, mentally. It's like going into an AA meeting and say, I can show you precisely how to recover. You know, people go, whoa, well. You want to know something? I can show you precisely how to recover. And how come you never hear that in an AA meeting? Because it sounds like bragging? Why is that? I look at some of the things in AA. You know, everybody's not going to participate. But one of the reasons why when Johnny asked me to come down here, why I agreed to do this, because I don't do this much anymore. I'm just getting too old and too grouchy. Is to tell you about my experience and what a difference it made in my life. And I can tell you without fear of contradiction that I'll bet 99% of you in this room have never heard what I just told you about. But it can make a big difference in your life. Now, I agreed to get up here and talk for an additional hour. I'm not going to. Because I about told you everything I know anyway. But I do want to say this. I really appreciate how attentive you've been through this whole thing. And I am gratified to find a big room full of people that love the big book. Thank you.